This podcast was recorded on Ramangeri land. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land.
Welcome to this week's episode of Fleurieu Footy Podcast. I'm your host, Steve Costello. We hope you enjoy the show. On today's program, we'll go through round 14 results for the men's A grade. We'll go through women's FPAG A grade results. We'll go through the men's reserves results. We'll have our special guest interview. Then we'll go through the Telstra Senior Colt results, the FPAG Under 17 Girls results, and the Fleurieu Milk Junior Colt results. And then we'll plug a local business and we'll do our question of the week. And that will be a wrap. Thanks a lot for joining us. Here are the Gsfl men's A grade results after round 14. First game of round 14 saw my Ponga Sellicks take on Langon Creek. Langon Creek defeated my Ponga Sellicks 10 goal 1070 to 10 goals 868. Pretty important game and a really close tussle there. The next game saw Strathalbyn take on McLaren. McLaren won that game 13 goals 1290 to Strathalbyn 11 goals 874. Yankalilla hosted Victor Harbor, and Victor Harbor ran away winners there 16 goal 15 111 to Yankalilla 3 goal 220. Encounter Bay hosted Mount Compass in an important game. Encounter Bay were victorious 19 goals 7 121, defeated Mount Compass 9 goal 5 59. And in the final game, Wollonga hosted Gould Port Elliot, and Wollonga were convincing winners. 32 goals 20 212, defeated Gould Port Elliot 5 goal 5 35. If you're looking for best players and goal kickers, please follow the website address below. Let's look at the Gsfl men's A grade leading goal kickers for round 14. And in first spot, we've got Ben Simmons from Strathalbyn on 47. Tied for second is Matthew Merritt from McLaren and Sam Basham from Victor Harbor, both on 45. In third spot is Jake Tarker from Encounter Bay on 42. Followed by Jackson Elms in fourth for Victor Harbor on 41. James Grimley from McLaren on 36. Tied for sixth is Nick Marshall from Encounter Bay and Tom Pinion from Mount Compass, both on 34. Followed by Tyson Neal from Encounter Bay on 32. And a three-way tie on 28. Hassan Ahmad Watkins from my Ponga Sellicks. Ziggy Vakunas from Mount Compass and Caleb Howell from Langon Creek. Let's have a look at the men's A grade Premiership Ladder after round 14. You've got McLaren undefeated on top with 14 wins. And then we've got Wollonga with 10 wins in second, followed by my Ponga Sellicks with 10 wins, just separated by percentage there. In fourth spot, we've got Victor Harbor with 9 wins, one game ahead of in fifth spot Encounter Bay on 8 wins, who are one game ahead of Strathalbyn in 6 and Langhorne Creek in 7th. They both have 7 wins. And then there's a bit of a gap now to Mount Compass in 8th with 4 wins, Yankalilla in 9th with 1 win, and Gould Port Elliot yet to have a win. But there's some cracking games coming up in round 15. We've got Encounter Bay playing Strathalbyn 5th versus 6th. We've got McLaren playing Langhorne Creek, which is 1st versus 7th, but Langhorne Creek are in some red-hot form. So that's a bit of a must-win for them and a danger game for McLaren. We've got Yank playing Gould Port Elliot 9th versus 10th. So this could sort out who might finish at the bottom. And then another game, my Ponga versus Wollonga, 2nd v 3rd. So, whoever wins that's going to have outright second. So some exciting games in the Gsfl this weekend in the A grade. Here are the results for the Gsfl Women's FP Ag A grade after round 14. Victor Harbour hosted McLaren, and McLaren were victorious 4-3 27 to Victor Harbour 1-3, 9 points. Then you've got Strathalbyn hosting Mount Compass, and Strathalbyn had the win 7-7 49 to Mount Compass 3-2 20. And the final game saw Wollonga host Gould Port Elliot. Wollonga won that game 14-8 92 to no score there. And Yankalilla had the bye. And if you want to see goal kickers and best players, just go to the website address below. Let's have a look at the Gsfl FP Ag Women's A grade leading goal kickers after round 14. And in first spot, we've got Courtney Gum from Wollonga on 21. Second is Sheena Peters from McLaren, 18. Third is Shay Archibald from Wollonga on 16, with Tamara Page on 16 in fourth. Then we've got a couple of girls in fifth and sixth, Indy Miller from Strath and Sally Fuller from McLaren, both on 15. A couple of girls in seventh and eighth, Lauren Reynolds, McLaren, she's on 12, and so is Stella Rentfrey Pacey from Wollonga. In ninth is Megan Rich from Strathalbyn with 10, and Emily Cooper is 10th with 9. Looking at the Women's FP Ag A grade Premiership Ladder after round 14, we've got Wollonga on top with 23 points. Second is McLaren on 18 points. Third is Gould Port Elliot on 16 points. Fourth is Strathalbyn on 12 points. Fifth is Yankalilla on 8 points. Sixth is Mount Compass on 6 points. And seventh is Victor Harbour on 1 point. So you would say that the top 4 or 5 is pretty well set there. Here are the results for the Gsfl Reserves grade after round 14. My Ponga Selix hosted Langon Creek, and the final score saw my Ponga Selix 13-6 84 defeat Langon Creek 4-5 29. Strathalbyn hosted McLaren, and McLaren came away victors there 10-7 67 to Strathalbyn 5-8 38. Yankalilla hosted Victor Harbour, and Victor Harbour had a win there 11-13 79, defeating Yankalilla 7-3 45. Encounter Bay hosted Mount Compass, and Encounter Bay had a win 22-14 146, defeating Mount Compass 1-17. And in the final game, Wollonga hosted Gould Port Elliot, and Wollonga ran out victors there 31-15 201, defeating Gould Port Elliot 1-17. Let's have a look at the leading goal kickers for the Gsfl men's reserve grade after round 14. And out in front is Blake Bailey from Encounter Bay on 31. In second is Thomas Grundy from my Ponga Selix, tied with Graydon Brand from Langon Creek on 29 in third. Fourth, Ben Hutchinson, my Ponga Selix, 23. Fifth is Sebastian Gerardo from my Ponga Selix on 18. Sixth is Jacob Still from Wollonga on 17, followed by Jacob McDonald from Wollonga on 16, tied with Braden Anderson from McLaren on 16 in 8th. Luke Goodison in 9th from McLaren on 15, tied with James Lawton 10th from Wollonga on 15, and Isaac Lyons in 11th from Langon Creek on 15, and Mark Curtis from McLaren on 15. Let's have a look at the men's reserve grade Premiership Ladder after round 14. We've got Wollonga on top in first position with 12 wins, along with Encounter Bay in second position on 12 wins, separated by percentage. In third is my Ponga Selix. They've got 10 wins. Fourth is McLaren with 9 wins, tied with Langon Creek in fifth on 9 wins. Sixth is Strathalbyn on 7 wins, and seventh is Victor Harbour on 6 wins. Then we've got Gould Port Elliot with 3 wins in 8th spot, Yankalilla with 1 win in 9th spot, and Mount Compass without a win at this stage. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Ryan Bridges from the Gould Port Elliot Football Club. He's joining us here at Fleurieu Footy Podcast, and he has done many roles at the Gould Port Elliot Football Club over the last 25 to 30 years, including currently president of the footy club. Am I right there, Ryan? Welcome.
You are right. Thanks for having me, Cosy. Good to be here.
No worries. So, look, the first question is pretty similar to what we've just talked about. Tell us about all the various roles and duties that you've performed and are performing at Gould Port Elliot Football Club.
Yeah, a lot of roles over the years. Like most people that are involved in local footy clubs, I started out as a junior footballer. Played my first game when I was 5 at the Maggies, and now 40 and been there ever since as a player, junior coach, senior assistant coach, committee member, club executive, league delegate. I even run around on the lawnmower and did the Oval last year. So a big variety of jobs, and all good in their own little ways, and all very enjoyable.
Now, if memory corrects me, I reckon back around 1999 when Adrian Setri was coaching and I was his assistant, you and your brother actually did the stats for us.
That is right. So, we used to sit in the car. Me and DB used to sit in the car, and one would have the piece of paper and the other would call. You'd basically sort of commentate the game, and that's how you'd mark your stats down, and then we'd collate them all just before the final siren, and whip them across to you guys. And the first game we did for you and Sets was a game out at Yankalilla. I can't remember if it was round 1 or round 2. We might have started in round 2 because he'd sort of said he wanted the stats done, and he got 51 that day, 51 touches. So it was a good day to do the stats for him, the incoming coach who got 51 touches. Later that year, I made my debut under you guys. I was playing Senior Colts up until then, but that was the year I debuted. So I reckon Paul Cummings might have taken my spot in the car, and I took a spot in the field. So I was always straight on to DB afterwards saying, "Oh, how many do I get?" And he'd say, "Oh, you only got 4 kicks and 2 hand passes." And I'd say, "Look, add 2 on the kicks and hand passes, and that's not going to hurt anybody."
I love it. Now, you've coached a bit before, and you coached a grand final, but it was a loss by about 1 point. Do you think you'd like to get back into coaching again?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind. I do enjoy the coaching side of things. It's it's as close as you can get to the actual game without pulling the boots on, which is a bit beyond me. But I coached our junior Colts side for 4 years, and that was pretty satisfying, especially probably more so one of the years where we weren't expected to do much, and we went on a bit of a hot streak and won a few finals by not a lot, but we probably played above ourselves. The year we lost the grand final, we were undefeated and got knocked off by Wollonga by a point at McLaren Oval, so that was disappointing. But that same group of guys for us ended up winning the 2012 Senior Colt flag, so they all stuck together and they got Wollonga by a point 3 years later. So, yeah, coaching for me is something I'd like to do. I've never done a standalone senior role. I've only ever been a bench assistant, but I think if I was to get back into coaching, that's where I'd like to target.
Okay, so there's been a fair bit of work going on at Gould Port Elliot Footy Club into the new club rooms and surroundings, a new coach, some new players. Do you think that there's a new atmosphere, culture building at the club, and if so, why?
It's definitely changed. I think our footy club previous to this year was probably like a lot of other footy clubs around the countryside. They can be boys' clubs a little bit, where it's very exclusive to the people directly involved to the club. You would have hung around the footy club long enough to know there's been some great times in that old building. But it was always that sort of feeling, I think, not for myself because I was always involved, but you just get that feeling that if you're a neutral supporter, if you're a person off the street, a community member, it was a bit daunting to walk up those rickety stairs, go through that door and basically have 40 footballers looking back at you thinking, what are you doing in here? So with the new building being nice and bright and open, professional catering, open more days of the week. I think it's just been a lot more inviting for everybody. So I think we've still got a really good atmosphere on a Saturday from our spectators and supporters. But I just think people are getting that feeling that it's more welcoming at the club, and we're seeing it with meals on Thursday nights. You know, I ran into a couple last week who saw a post on Facebook, come down, tried a meal out, bought one of the Magpie Ales just off the back of a Facebook post. I reckon 5 or 6 years ago in that dark and dingy double story, they wouldn't have ventured up there. So atmosphere is amazing at the games, but it's become a little bit more inclusive, I think, inside the clubhouse, which is not purely ours anymore, which has its downfall, but it opens it up to everybody enjoying it, which is a good thing.
Yeah. So, being one of the leaders at the club in regards to admin, do you have plans in place with your current coach, Michael Kilsby, as a club coach? Do you have something like a 5-year plan in place?
Yeah, we've been pretty straight down the line with, you know, whether we're talking with other clubs or talking to our members and players. We seriously dropped the ball a bit on footy. The building of this new facility has been very, very draining energy-wise, and footy's taken a bit of a backward seat, which has been a shame because we're a footy club and we're volunteers. We shouldn't be having 6 or 7 meetings with the council talking about, you know, designs and management models and things like that. But we've had to do that to get to where we are. So we've sort of just stripped it right back, and the football department now is working pretty hard to get a structure in place. I think, you know, if you look at some of the successful clubs around the countryside, you know, you take a club like Mundalla out in the sticks. You know, at Mundalla, they lose 3 players, they lose a president, they lose a coach. Whatever happens, the machine just keeps ticking the next year because they've got a format and a structure that it doesn't matter about the cattle within that structure. It continues like a well-oiled machine, and that's where we want to get to. Hopefully, Michael's a part of that. He's done a great job this year. He's been thrown in the deep end with, you know, a lot of outgoing players and a pretty late start to recruiting and pre-season. Really good with the young fellas, good communicator. He's really passionate about it. And basically right now he's not appointed for next year, but we've given him a bit of a guide as to what we need to see around his deficiencies and his areas of improvement. And he'll go away and put some stuff together, and I'm sure he'll put his hat in the ring again for the job.
So he's got a big game Saturday. You play Yank, who are in 9th. You're in 10th. You're a little bit ahead of Yank on percentage, so a win could see you jump to 9th
It's
spot.
a big game. Yeah, they're big games when you're talking this sort of level. I mean, I know there's 7 clubs vying for 5 spots, and it's pretty hot at the top end. But for us, just to keep the morale going and keep the ball, showing the road, a win would be really good for these guys. They're a group of guys that have no one ever deserves anything in footy, I don't think, but it'd be good to see some of these young and up and comers get that taste of it, because I think once they do, they'll realise that, you know, in 2023 with, you know, some cattle up the spine, there's a bit of excitement around, and, you know, those young guys, you know, if they get a taste of a win, I'm sure it'll be something they'll hang on to and really enjoy.
Look, the competition in the A grade at the moment is pretty fierce. So, you know, I mean, even a 9th versus 10th is pretty exciting. You've got 5th and 6th playing against each other in Canterbury and Strath. So, yeah, it's all for a pretty exciting weekend of footy,
It's a cracking comp, and up the top end there's some big games this week, and the final series is going to be amazing. I think it's going to be, you know, a hot final series. McLaren, red hot favourites, but there's some teams underneath that you'd be a bit worried about playing on the last day if you're undefeated, I would have thought. And even 9th versus 10th. I mean, Adam Hartlett, who's played AFL football, he played for us last year, and the game that sold him to play footy in this comp was a game that we played against Yankalilla. And I don't think it was 9th versus 10th, but it might have been 6th versus 7th, 7th versus 8th, something like that. And he went along and had a look, and he thought it was unreal. And when we said to him, you do realise that was, you know, 8v9, 7 versus 8, whatever it was, he was pleasantly surprised by that. So it's a good standard. It's going to be a big game. Yank won't want to drop it, but we're pretty keen to have it.
Absolutely. Look, moving on from the sort of club footy, we're going to go to the AFL and find out who you support in the AFL.
Yeah, I'm an Adelaide Crows man. I I don't actually watch a lot of AFL footy these days, which some people might be surprised by, because I used to be a bit of a footy nut, but I rarely watch footy these days. I think once you volunteer, this week I'll be there at the club Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, off to the men's footy Saturday and have a look at the girls on Sunday. So you're a bit footied out by the time the AFL comes on the TV. But yeah, I'm a Crows man. I was there at the first game in '91 against Hawthorn, and I've been on board ever since. Despite being a Port Magpies fan, I stuck with the Crows, and I've got a bit of a weird support situation because I'm Port Adelaide Magpies and Adelaide Crows, which is not common.
Very rare, mate. That's north-south pole stuff.
It is.
So who's your all-time favourite AFL player?
I'm a Wayne Carey man, and he's an absolute superstar. He was at his peak right when I was, that 13, 14, 15-year-old kid who just loved everything about footy, and he was a guy that could do it all. You buy your ticket and you go to the AFL to watch the big name players, and there was none bigger. And yeah, he could turn a game, and it was frustrating to watch him at Footy Park on some of those nights where he'd tear us apart. But geez, he was a good player to watch. Absolute gun.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more, mate. One of the best captains I've ever seen.
Right up there. Selwood's obviously the modern day captain star when it comes to it. But even Selwood as a captain, fantastic player. But it's just those big boys that can just turn that game single handedly that I always liked.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of captains at the moment that are probably moulding themselves around Wayne Carey. Someone like a Cripps, and you're the guy from Collingwood, Pendlebury. Superstars of the game, but also really good captains. So that's what Wayne Carey was.
He could play. There's no doubt about it.
So that's the questions I've got for you. So we'll move on to the quiz. And look, the questions vary from easy to hard. So I'm sure you'll probably do all right. You said you're not a footy nut, but if you go to the footy as much as you did during the week, like what do you go? Thursday, Tuesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday? Well, you're a nut. So let's have a go and see how you go with these. The first question is, Peter Dacos was a legend at Collingwood Footy Club. What was his nickname?
Peter Dacos his nickname was the Macedonian Marvel.
Now, we'll go and do the results at the end, so we'll just roll through the questions. Now, which famous AFL VFL family has played the most games as a group? The Rockers, the Danahers, or the Ablets?
Is that supposed to be the tough one? That's a tough one.
Yeah.
Have to be the Danahers.
Well, that's one of the tough ones. I don't know. You might find all of them tough. So we'll give you the answers at the end. Which team has never won an AFL grand final? Remember, AFL, not VFL, AFL. Geelong, Port Adelaide, Collingwood, Sydney, or St Kilda. Question 4, how many premierships has Adelaide won? Well, being an Adelaide fan, you should roll that.
I was there in 1997, so that's one. That'd be 2, I reckon.
And who came first in 2004? Brisbane, Collingwood, Essendon, Port Adelaide, Sydney, or West Coast?
2004 would have been Port Adelaide.
Okay, so they're the questions. They're the 5 questions, and I reckon you've got 4 out of 5. So that means you've tied with Gianni Petrucci and Dennis Rice. And the one that you got wrong was the AFL VFL family was the Ablets.
The Ablets.
The Ablets. So just quickly, you had Jeff, Kevin, Gary Sr., Gary Jr., and Nathan. And between all of them, it was 950 games all up.
Stumped on.
So nearly.
Kevin played.
I reckon Jeff and Kevin played for Hawthorn, but you'd probably be best to Google
Gary
that.
Senior started, but yeah.
Correct. I know Jeff played at Hawthorn because I remember him, early 70s. But I'm not sure about Kevin. I didn't hear too much about Kevin as a player. Yeah, that's a Google for you, mate.
Oh, four's not bad. So,
Look, really good having you on board, mate. Appreciate your time and all the best for the rest of the season with what you're doing, and hopefully you guys can get a win.
Beauty. Thanks for having me, Cos.
Here are the results for the Gsfl Telstra Senior Colts after round 14. My Ponga Selix hosted Langon Creek. Final score saw my Ponga Selix 10 goals 20, 80 points. Defeat Langon Creek 4 goal 1, 25. Strathalbyn hosted McLaren. Final score saw Strathalbyn 16 goals 7, 103. Defeat McLaren 6 goal 4, 40. Yankalilla took on Victor Harbour. Yankalilla 13 goals 23, 101. Defeated Victor Harbour 1 goal 1, 7. Encounter Bay hosted Mount Compass. Final score saw Encounter Bay 14 goals 11. Defeat Mount Compass 5 goals 232. And then the last game was Wollonga versus Google Port Elliot. And Wollonga were victorious there, 12 goals 779, defeating Google Port Elliot 6 goals 844. If you're looking for best players and goal kickers, just follow the web address below. Let's have a look at the Gsfl Telstra Senior Colts leading goal kickers after round 14. And in front, we've got Dexter Kenny from my Ponga Selix on 49. Second is Ryan Corby in Counter Bay 36, along with Dash Hawley from Yankalilla on 36. Joshua Gerardo from my Ponga Selix on 31. Fifth is Archie Evans, Gould Port Elliot, 29. Jack Gilbert, Strathalbyn on 27. Zaid Edwards, Wollonga, 24. Tyler Davidson, McLaren on 22. Adam Toke, Langon Creek, 21. Finn Hayden, Gould Port Elliot, 21. And Lockie Nash, Mount Compass, 20. Here is the Telstra Senior Colts Premiership Ladder after round 14. And on top, we've got Encounter Bay with 12 wins, tied with my Ponga Selix in second with 12 wins, separated by percentage. Third is Wollonga on 11 wins. Fourth is Strathalbyn on 10 wins. Fifth is Gould Port Elliot with 9 wins. Then in sixth and seventh, we've got Yankalilla and McLaren on 5 wins, separated by percentage. Eighth is Langon Creek with 4 wins. Ninth is Mount Compass with 2 wins. And 10th is Victor Harbour, yet to post a victory. Here are the results for the Gsfl FP Ag Under-17 Girls after round 14. Strathalbyn hosted Yankalilla. Final score there saw Strathalbyn win with 8 points versus Yankalilla 1 goal, 6 points. So Strath didn't kick a goal, but they still won the game. Victor Harbour versus McLaren, and Victor Harbour won that game 7 goal 446 to 3 straight goals from McLaren 18. And in the last game, Wollonga played Gould Port Elliot and give him a bit of a touch-up, 23 goals 9, 147 to Gould Port Elliot, no score. Mount Cubs had the bye, and you can find best players and goal kickers on that web link below. The Gsfl FPA Girls Under-17 leading goal kickers after round 14 finds Emma Charlton in first spot from Wollonga with 31, followed by Emily Steele from Wollonga in second on 27 goals. Then you've got third, Shay Archbold, Wollonga on 20. Fourth is Abby Woodward from Wollonga on 16. Fifth is Mexi Marks from Yankalilla on 15. Sixth is Georgia Ellis from McLaren on 13. Seventh is Bella Rigby from Wollonga on 12. Eighth is Raphael Lombardozzi from Wollonga on 11. Ninth is Raya Toddy Linshu from Victor Harbour on 10. And 10th is Amelia Bilney from Yankalilla with 9 goals. Quick look at the FPAG Under-17 Girls Premiership Ladder after round 14 finds Wollonga on top, undefeated, with 13 wins and a massive percentage, 2,325. Well, Second spot, Strathalbyn with 8 wins. Third is McLaren with 6 wins, followed by Yankalilla in fourth with 6 wins. Victor Harbor in fifth with 5 wins. Gould Port Elliot in sixth with 1 win. And in seventh is Mount Compass. Here are the results for the Gsfl Fleurieu Milk Junior Colts after round 14. So my Ponga Selix hosted Langon Creek. My Ponga Selix defeated Langon Creek 19 goals 13, 127 to 1 goal 6. Strathalbyn hosted McLaren and Strathalbyn ran out victors there. Strath 10 goals 8, 68, defeated McLaren 1 goal 6, 12. Yankalilla took on Victor Harbor. Victor Harbor were the winners there, 11 goal 4, 70, defeating Yankalilla 1 goal 4, 10. Encounter Bay hosted Mount Compass, and the final score there saw Encounter Bay 13 goals 12, 90, defeat Mount Compass 2 goal 3, 15. And then in the final game, Wollonga hosted Gould Port Elliot. Wollonga won that game 12 goal 13, 85, defeating Gould Port Elliot 3 goal 2, 20. And if you want to find the best players and goal kickers, just go to that web address below. Here's the Fleurieu Milk Junior Colts Premiership Ladder after round 14. And on top is my Ponga Selix with 13 wins, closely followed in second by Wollonga with 12 wins. Third is Strathalbyn with 10 wins, tied with Encounter Bay in fourth on 10 wins. In fifth is Victor Harbor on 8 wins. Sixth is Gould Port Elliot on 7 wins. Seventh is McLaren with 5 wins. 8 is Langon Creek with 3. Ninth is Mount Compass with 1. And Yankalilla have yet to have a win. Let's have a look at some results from the Senior Colts round 14, 10 years ago. So Encounter Bay hosted Wollonga, and Wollonga were victorious 13 goal 3, 81, defeating Encounter Bay 3 goal 3, 21. Best players for Wollonga were L. Garrett, A. Rennie, J. Johnson, C. Nelson, J. Cook, and M. Ficken. And the goal kickers were L. Garrett 5, J. Johnson 5, D. McNichol 4, J. Docking 4, singles to C. Nelson, A. Iverson, and M. Palumbo. Best players for Encounter Bay, J. Marshall, D. Gardner, J. Ling, I. Sweatman, H. Medlin, and D. Mason. Goal kickers W. Whitehead 2 and 1 to D. Mason. Gould Port Elliot hosted Yankalilla, and Gould Port Elliot ran out victorious 11 goal 2, 68, defeating Yankalilla 1 goal 2, 8. Best players for Gould Port Elliot: R. Smith, F. Nissen, R. Cloney, M. Wees, J. Fry, and C. Horton. Goal kickers for Gould Port Elliot: J. Fry 7, M. Wees 2, singles to A. McDonald, J. Shepherd, and Z. Johnson. Best players for Yankalilla: S. Crawford, C. Harrison, D. Dawes, N. Morris, J. Bennett, and B. Nichols. And a single goal kicker there, N. Morris. So McLaren hosted Victor Harbor, and the final score saw Victor Harbor 10 goal 4, 64, defeat McLaren 6 goal 2, 38. Best players for Victor Harbor: R. Fletcher, O. Dowling, T. Neville, T. Eckers Broadbent, and R. Scott. Goal kickers for Victor Harbor: M. Stock 3, T. Osborne 2, R. Fletcher 2, A. Osborne, T. Eckers Broadbent, and T. Neville all kicked 1. Best players for McLaren: J. Vanderloo, J. Addy, A. Burns, L. Burns, M. Matillo, and J. Charler. Goal kickers for McLaren: B. Wiley 2, singles to D. Bilney, J. Charler, J. Matthews, and J. Addy. So Mount Compass hosted Langon Creek. Final score Langon Creek, 11 goal 9.75, defeated Mount Compass 2 goal 3.15. Best players for Langon Creek, B. Mortensen, J. Moisey, J. Schmock, J. Wyatt, J. Crenell, and J. Hopgood. A few J's there. Goal kickers, M. Dominish 3, J. Cranwell 3, C. Chandler, R. Willis, G. Brand, T. Murgatroyd, N. Laurie, R. Matner, and B. Mortensen all kicked 1. Best players for Mount Compass, T. Vitkunis, M. Reid, M. Jarrod, J. Davis, H. Peters, and D. Nash. Goal kickers, J. Nash and D. Kamek, 1 each. My Ponga Sellicks hosted Strathalbyn, and the final score saw Strathalbyn 10 goal 12.72 defeat my Ponga Sellicks 2 goal 13.25. Best players for Strathalbyn, B. Abbott, A. Clark, C. Clark, W. Rosser, J. Maloney, and M. Bleckeron. Goal kickers for Strathalbyn, T. Larkham 3, L. Hourigan 2, R. Hyatt 2, singles to C. Clark, B. Abbott, and J. Maloney. Best players for my Ponga Sellicks, B. Vlugan, J. Ledgard, M. Williams, C. Ledgard, and N. Flimpton. Goal kickers, 1 each to B. Vlugan and S. Mills. So the Premiership Ladder for Senior Colts after round 14 10 years ago saw Langon Creek in front with 14 wins, followed by Gould Port Elliot in second on 12 wins. Third was Mount Compass with 9 wins. Fourth was Wollonga with 8 wins, tied with Victor Harbour in fifth on 8 wins, and Strathalbyn in sixth with 8 wins. Seventh was Ponga Sellicks with 5 wins. 8th, Yankalilla with 3 wins. 9th was McLaren with 3 wins. And 10th was Encounter Bay without a victory. But the 4th, 5th and 6th spot was pretty close, even 3rd. So a tight finish to the Premiership season in the Senior Colts. It's time for this week's Plug a Local Business. This week's small business is What's Popping, shopping and retail, showcasing SA artists and small businesses. They stock GBF Clothing Company, women's clothing, jewellery, handbags, leather goods, Kindred Self, pop art greeting cards, accessories, candles, and Naked Soap Company. Located in beautiful town of Goolwa, South Australia. Shop 3/2 Cadell Street, Goolwa. Call them in on 0433 849 080 or send a message via their Facebook page. They are very responsive. It's time for Question of the Week. Luke Beveridge's stance, leave it as it is. Reward the player who's got his head over the footy. If he's low, he's low. Ultimately, penalise the guy who hasn't tackled like he should have tackled. Let's not change things again because the umpires have got it hard enough. It's another flinch. Just reward the player who's hardest at the football, and let's not victimise that sort of behaviour because it should be rewarded, not penalised. Do you agree with Western Bulldogs coach Luke Beveridge's take on the AFL's high tackle stance? Comment on our Facebook page or send us an email at fleurieu@gmail.com.
Don't stop. Watch out now. That